Hello? No, I'm not busy. No, I don't do the show on Saturday. It's Friday. What do you mean it's Friday? That's right, it's Friday! And you know what that means? Gridiron Glory. Nothing better than Friday nights and Gridiron Glory. Let's get it! Did someone say playoffs? Because it's week 11 and we are officially into the postseason. Cue the confetti, cue the Tina twerking gif, cue the techno music that everyone hates but somehow dances to it. And let's get it going. I'm your host, Joseph Hennessy, and tonight is a packed show. We had 3 games we went to and we have 4 on Saturday night all across Ohio. Teams have been grinding to get to this stage to battle for the ultimate glory, and we have the coverage that you need. 1-0. Do or die. Prepare during the week so the Fridays don't scare you. 7 teams made it past week 10, and we are going to see who's got the juice. RIP to the GOAT, Tupac. We do not have just one game of the week because it is the playoffs. We have games that everyone is ready for. It's playoff time. Sheridan, coming off consecutive MVL titles.
However you want to put it, the Generals dominated this one.
Sheridan was balling on both sides of the field.
The Sheridan defense put the clamps.
John Glenn, their first conference title in almost 40 years.
Well, Joe, their mascot is a fish, but this team is a bunch of dogs.
John Glenn has been tough all year. Jackson, a perfect season. But can they go all the way?
The Iron Curtain defense is the hallmark of this Jackson team.
Jackson ran away with it in the fourth quarter.
Seems like this Jackson team is for real. Trimble, can they get that championship ring?
Trimble's defense has been on fire.
How do I put this? Trimble is really good at football.
And the fans in Gloucester definitely brought that same energy.
Eastern, 19 years, but it feels like yesterday. Will they prove it?
The Eastern Eagles marched down the hill and flew onto the field. Blake Newland kicks it into high gear.
Waterford, in the playoffs again, but how far will they go?
Waterford's defense was really tough. He's sacked by Cole Miller. Feeling good, the Wildcats are ready to make a move.
Wellston, flipped the script, 3-7 to 7-3.
Stopping Riley Mullihan will be the main priority.
The first playoffs since 2006.
Yeah, the Golden Rockets come out firing. Traveled to Jonathan Alder. The Generals have more than 2,400 rushing yards as a team this season. They love to ground and pound, but tonight it wasn't that easy against the Pioneers. Joining me now live from Pioneer Field is MVL lead reporter Paul Roth, who witnessed the action go down.
Beautiful view, too. Now, you can't see it, but Jonathan Alder is rocking a brand new scoreboard and new turf field. But Sheridan, they didn't drive over an hour just for a pretty view. They came here for business, and they wanted to play smash mouth Generals football. And there are the Sheridan Generals marching into battle. Now, things would start slow, but before the end of the first, Nate Johnson goes play action, and he finds a wide-open Kyler Altier for a 26-yard pickup. And then a couple plays later, Jason Munyon punches it in and says, "Hey, look at me. I did that." Now, Sheridan would pick Alder off on their ensuing drive and go back to work. Munyon squeezes out of the pile, cuts back in before getting dragged down just inside the 5. And then once again, Munyon to the outside this time, and you'll see, no, he's not going to be shaken from the cold. He's just loving it. And Alder trying to come back down 13. JT Keith finds Jackson Izzard on the screen. He brushes off a tackler, and he's down inside the 10. And then Alder would score on this keeper by Keith a couple plays later. But we go to the second half. Midway through the third, Keith drops back, hit as he throws, and the defense is draped all over him, but Izzard mosses his defender, and that's a huge pickup for the Pioneers. And then the next play, they go reverse Fennec, and Alder is up 1. And then it was all downhill for the Generals after that. Sheridan fumble, Alder again. Fennec to the left this time for 6. And then later in the fourth, for good measure, Garrett Proxmire finds a huge hole, and ain't nobody catching that, boys. The Pioneers take this one 35-13 as the final.
So that's it for the Generals. They finished their season in just the first week of the playoffs.
Yeah, it's a tough way to go out for sure. They were up 2 scores early, but just couldn't hang on. This team had a lot of high aspirations, especially coming off another MVL title.
Yeah, clearly not the way Sheridan wanted to end their season, but it sounds like the wheels just fell off in the second half. What happened?
Well, Joe, more specifically, the Generals' offense fell apart in the second half. They started the third quarter with a couple of 3-and-outs and then ended up turning the ball over 3 more times. Twice they gave it away on fumbles, but even still, the Sheridan defense was holding their own and kept Alder off the board after both of them. The problem was their offense couldn't produce anything else, and they were left on the field too long as eventually the defense started to crack. They gave up a couple more scores towards the end with just under a minute, Alder was able to put the exclamation on the end with a pick 6 to finish it. Now, I mentioned the Generals' defense was what kept them in the game towards the end, and a lot of that has to do with Shea Taylor. He was flying to the ball all game and even got a pick in the first half. He was a catalyst for a lot of the Generals' second half stops, and luckily for Sheridan fans, he's just a junior, so you'll get another year of his electrifying play. Now some send-off for some seniors: Owen Gordon, Daniel Miller, Connor Robertson, Will Hamilton, Lucan Hill, Bryn Haas, Alec Ogle, Andrew Slatzer, Devin Factor, Kyle Altier, he got a big pass tonight, Wyatt Schreiner, Graham Brandt, Jess Studer, Cameron Oldfield, Colton Talbot, Santino DeJohn, and Aiden Smith. That's a lot of guys playing their last game tonight, Joe.
Yeah, but they're still set up for the future. Quarterback Nate Johnson, running back Jordan Munyon, and like you said, linebacker Shea Taylor are all returning. That's a lot of key players, which already gives them a good reason to look forward to next year. Thanks for the great work, Paul, and get home safe. Week 11 means more. It means different teams we haven't seen and more breakdowns for the teams we cover. We can't talk about it all on our show, so follow Gridiron Glory on Twitter, like the page on Facebook, and add us on Snapchat. We will have another episode of the Joe Zone this week talking about next week's games, so be on the lookout for those. You bring glory, we report it. Reese Perkins, Noah Wellmeyer, Blade Barclay. There are plenty more I'm missing from the Little Muskie squad, but what can we expect to see tomorrow from John Glenn? MVL reporter David Butts is here to break it down for us.
Fourth-seeded John Glenn will certainly look to make a statement tomorrow night, Joe, playing in their first playoff game as MVL champs in nearly 40 years. After marching their way to a share of the MVL title, the Little Muskies come into these playoffs with their own proven game plan. They come into these playoffs with their own proven game plan, and you can be sure that that plan will include Gridiron Glory Player of the Year candidate Reese Perkins. His 11 scores on the season show not only the chemistry between he and quarterback Evan Williams, but also his dominant presence as a deep threat. By creating that space for the offense, John Glenn looks to take advantage routinely with their shifty tailback, Noah Wellmeyer. And defensively for the Little Muskies, just 12 points per game given up on the year. They'll certainly need that aggressiveness against the dual threat ability of junior quarterback Tyler Tonkovich. As deep as the Red Devil squad has proven to be, so much of that 36 point per game production falls on the shoulders of the experienced signal caller. And the read option game also has become a catalyst for the St. Clair's running game as well.
Yeah, for John Glenn, Perkins has 647 receiving yards. Wellmeyer has over 800 rushing yards, so an explosive offense. They average 31 points a game. They have the potential to do it. St. Clairsville, though, it's going to be a tough matchup for them. Thanks, David. The Jackson Ironmen sit at 10-0 and are trying to get to the state championship with a senior-led team. Centennial in the regular season allowed just 8.3 points per game. FAC lead reporter Will Collins was there, and Will, Jackson shifted that average up just a little tonight, huh?
Joseph, you've heard of No Shave November, right?
Yeah, you've taken it to heart. The beard is looking good, my man. Do you even own a razor?
Well, I do own one, but I sure haven't used it lately. It's probably a little dull. But you know who looked razor sharp tonight? The Jackson Ironmen did. Coach of the Year candidate Andy Hall and the Jackson Ironmen were hyped up and ready to take on the Centennial Stars. Speaking of the Stars, quarterback Jalen Gilbert would get things rolling on this 45-yard completion to Charles Dean over the middle, and Dean says he got in the end zone, but he would be down at the 1. Just plays later, though, Justin Gilbert would keep it himself and muscle his way in, putting Centennial up 7-0. No need to fear, though, Jackson fans. Jaden Spires would take this counter, make a cut, and race into the end zone from 23 yards out to even the score at 7 apiece. After an interception, with 42 seconds to go in the opening quarter, Jackson would take the lead 14-7 on this 1-yard keeper by Jared Eisenhower. Jalen Gilbert now, and the Stars said not so fast though, with Gilbert hitting Charles Dean on this 16-yard in route for the score, tying the ball game at 14 with 8 minutes to go in the second. Just 2 minutes later, this play fakes out our cameraman, but Jared Eisenhower drops this 23-yard dime to Traylon Davis, making the score 21-14. After that score, the Ironmen would begin to pull away. Jaden Spires makes a few punishing cuts and brings the ball down inside the 20-yard line, setting up the offense in the red zone. And in the waning minutes of the half, Bryce Graham would put the Ironmen up 28-14, and they would go on to win big in this one, 70-28.
So the Ironmen were big winners in this one. What made them so tough to stop tonight?
Joe, that answer starts with the Jackson running game tonight and ends with the Iron Curtain defense.
If it starts with the offense, give it to me straight. How good were they?
Well, to start off, the Ironmen rushed for a season-high 461 yards tonight and had 534 total yards of offense. Jackson's offensive attack was led by their workhorses, quarterback Jared Eisenhower and running backs Jaden Spires and Bryce Graham. Listen to the stat line, Joe. 20 carries, 225 yards, and 2 touchdowns with an average of 11.3 yards a carry. And that comes from who other than GGPOY candidate Jaden Spires. He proved why he made our list tonight. He was virtually untouchable when he had the ball in his hands, not to mention he plays defense too. Bryce Graham had a great night with 104 yards and 3 touchdowns on just 8 carries. When the offense was looking for answers, Jared Eisenhower took control with his arm and threw 2 touchdown passes.
Yeah, but how about that Iron Curtain defense?
Joe, the Iron Curtain defense did not disappoint tonight. They were in the backfield disrupting the usually potent Centennial rushing attack what seemed like every play, and when the Stars couldn't escape, they didn't get far. The defense made Centennial string together long drives, tiring out the opposing offensive line, and the Stars only covered about 3rd downs on the night. They also had a great night defending the pass, coming away with 3 interceptions. Jackson wins their 8th playoff game in school history, and they move on to play Jonathan Alder next week at a neutral site.
Well, as always, thanks for the lowdown on all things Jackson. That's going to be a good matchup next week. It's been a couple of weeks since we've done this, but that doesn't mean we've forgotten about the big boys up front. We never ignore what the linemen are doing week in and week out. Ain't nothing but love over here for the men in the trenches getting hit in the face all night. Here is Lineman Love.
The John Glenn Little Muskies run game has been solid all year long. Noah Wellmeyer takes the carry, runs through the hole, and gets flipped, but hey, he gets the positive gain. But let's slow it down. Blaze Baker leaves the D-end open for Gary Hoffman, the pulling guard, and he pops him and opens up the hole behind him. My goodness, that's gotta hurt. He about took his helmet off, he hit him so hard. And we have John Glenn again, but this time right at the goal line, Wellmeyer with the outside zone run. He crosses the plane and gets in for the easy tutty. But look at Anthony Perkins. He's looking for a ceramic to hit, and he does just that with a lot of power. Tight ends need some loving too, and don't worry, we'll give you it if you block like that. The Waterford Wildcats with Zane Heiss now. He takes the snap, scrambles around, trying to find anything, and he sees the opening, then takes it to the crib, past 3 Belpre defenders. But it all starts with number 65, Gavin Brooker, getting the D-end to open up with a swim move. The grass is slippery, but he doesn't care. He keeps his feet moving and lets Heiss sneak in behind him. Heiss does the rest, but it all started with number 65 in white. Joey Moore with the RPO. He sees nothing, scrambles right, and he uses his legs to get the gain up the field. But I love this right here. Look at this man, heart over height. The junior, Alex Leatherwood, at 5'8", 165, explodes off the line and gets his hands under the D-end's shoulder pads. He keeps his hands and feet active, allowing Moore to use his athleticism and create something from nothing. We see you working in the trenches, and we're giving the linemen and tight ends all the love tonight. LL, baby.
The undefeated Trimble Tomcats welcomed in the Southern Indians, who are also undefeated. The Tomcats made it past Week 10 for the 10th straight time. We welcome in TVC Hawking reporter Michael Roth. And Michael, Trimble was up for the challenge, and home field really helped them tonight.
Joe, I traveled to Gloucester to see the only matchup between 10-0 teams in the entire state. Trimble hasn't played a single game within 28 points all season, but the Tomcats were tested tonight against another team that was perfect throughout the regular season. Here comes Southern, and they are pumped up for this one, but for Trimble, they want all the smoke. Early on, Cam Kittle gets Trimble on the board during their first drive with a QB sneak. Southern then plays copycat with the Tomcats with a sneak of their own, 7-6 Trimble. Kittle wasn't just getting it done on the ground. He drops back and hits Blake Guffey down the sideline for a Tomcat first down. But later in that drive, it's 4th and 24 for Trimble, and Kittle goes deep and he finds Guffey again. He slips past the tackle and he's in the end zone just before halftime to give Trimble a 13-6 lead. The second half starts, Cameron Grodhouse takes an outside handoff and he goes whoop on Kittle for a solid gain. Later on that drive, it's Jay Sloan looking for an Indian teammate. He rolls outside the pocket, but he's tracked down and thrown to the ground by Tabor Lackey. Kittle would get his revenge on Southern with this 40-yard scamper to give the Tomcats some breathing room. That makes it 20-6, Trimble in control at the moment in the fourth quarter. The Tomcats would need that Kittle touchdown as Southern's usual wide receiver Grodhouse rolls outside the pocket at quarterback. He throws it into coverage. The two players are wrestling over the ball. It's finally ruled a Southern touchdown. That makes it 20-14. Trimble just needs to run the clock out, but Cam Kittle says night, takes it to the house, 26-14. Tomcats win. They are moving on.
Yeah, it seems like that Trimble defense really carried the Tomcats to victory against an opponent ready for the challenge of facing that Trimble defense.
Yeah, they made plays when they had to, but Southern really moved the ball well throughout the entire game. Despite Trimble giving up more points this game than they have all season combined, it could have been more for the Indians. 2 touchdowns were taken off the board due to penalties by Southern. Those costly mistakes were the difference tonight on the scoreboard. Despite that, both teams were physical and held the high-powered offenses in check. Southern has 4 players on the line that weigh 290 pounds or more, including one that's listed at 360 pounds on their roster. Their size gave potential Player of the Year Connor Wright trouble all game, as he wasn't able to burst a big carry all night. The two teams were battling it out, with both teams hitting each other hard in the cold weather. There's a reason this Trimble defense held their opponents to 6 total points all season. Trimble had to work harder for this victory than they have in any regular season game this season, and it doesn't get any easier coming up in Week 12.
All right, let's talk about Week 12. Who will Trimble be taking on during their next roadblock in their quest for a state title?
Trimble advances to play another battle of unbeatens, facing 11-0 New Middletown Springfield. The Tigers took down the 8 seed Western Reserve 34-7 tonight.
Yeah, those Tigers are averaging 43 points per game. Should be another good test for that Trimble defense, and we'll have that game covered for you next week. Thanks, Michael. Appreciate the work. Tonight we will announce who our Gridiron Glory Player of the Year candidates are. It's been a long season, and after looking at the stats and the teams and the impact these guys have made, they are more than deserving for being in the top 5 players in our entire coverage. We will be telling you who they are at the end of our show, so stick around. Tweet at us with the hashtag GridGlory your guess on who the top 5 are. 2 more Hocking teams will play their playoff games on Saturday. I'm joined by TVC Hocking reporter Zach Paquette, who will be in Waterford tomorrow night for the matchup between the Wildcats and Shenandoah. Now, Zach, what does Waterford need to do tomorrow night in order to find success against the Zeps?
Joe, consistency will be key for the Wildcats, especially early on in the game. The Wildcats are coming off a very emotional win over rival Belpre last week, thanks to a second-half comeback. They're just going to have to come out strong and avoid that emotional letdown early. You look at Waterford's 2 losses against Trimble and Fort Fry, and those bad starts put the Wildcats in deep holes they couldn't climb out of.
Yeah, those are pretty good opponents in Trimble and Fort Fry. They didn't play their best against them.
Well, both Waterford and Shenandoah both played the Cadets in the regular season in pretty one-sided affairs. Waterford lost to the Cadets in Week 3 by a score of 49-0, while the Zeps played Fort Fry 2 weeks ago and lost 35-0.
So what can you tell us about the Zeps squad?
Well, Joe, they sit at 8-2, the same record as Waterford. Their best win came against a 5-5 Barnesville team. However, when they played teams with a winning record, they were 0-2. Their offense is averaging almost 25 points per game, but they have scored only 14 total points in the last 2 weeks. Joe, I'm really looking forward to this matchup tomorrow night. It seems pretty even on paper.
It sure does. It's going to be a great Week 12 game. Thanks for the work, Paquette. The Eastern Eagles have had themselves a year, but losing in the first round of the playoffs is not on the agenda. To talk about the Eagles matchup tomorrow night is TVC Hocking lead reporter Sam Wiesmith.
Joe, it's been a long time coming for the Eastern Eagles, and it was an uphill battle for them to reach until Week 11. In Week 4, Eastern fell to 2-2 overall after their loss to Waterford, but the Eagles bounced back with 6 straight wins to make the playoffs for the first time since iTunes was launched in 2001. They're tied with Cleveland Lutheran East for snapping the longest playoff-less streak in the state of Ohio this year. The biggest accomplishment for the Eagles during the regular season would have to be their 63-6 victory over their rival Southern. Eastern needed that win to make the playoffs, and this game gave them tons of momentum heading into tomorrow night.
Let's look ahead now. What can Eastern fans expect from their opponent on Saturday?
Newark Catholic will be a tough opponent. The Green Wave finished at 7-3 during the regular season, and in Week 9 they took down Heath, an 8-2 Division IV team, 41-16. After starting the season 1-2, Newark Catholic won 6 of their last 7 games, and they know how to seal the deal in close ones. Newark Catholic seniors made the state Final Four when they were freshmen, but they haven't made a playoff appearance since then, so it's sure to be an exciting matchup against the Eagles.
Yeah, Sam, you ready for this pop culture fun facts I got for you? The last time Eastern was in the playoffs, Gladiator won Best Film at the Oscars. The Eastern Eagles are looking at everyone like, are you not entertained? Well, we are, and we will be there tomorrow night. Thanks, Sam. We have 2 snaps this week. First, it's from Austin Barrett, who sent this picture, and it's a throwback of juniors and seniors from the Trimble squad back in 3rd and 4th grade. Then the next one is from Riley Wright. This sign that you'll see is in the gym, posted for the Trimble boys to see before they go to battle. They were getting ready for that one. The snap says, "We're ready for round 1. Let's go Cats." Thanks for the snaps, and keep them coming. Alrighty, we continue with our previews for the Saturday night games, and it's a team coming out of the TVC Ohio. The Wellston Golden Rockets will be in the playoffs for the first time since 2006, and TVC Ohio lead reporter Jacob Murray details how David can win against Goliath. What can we expect from Ironton tomorrow?
Yeah, Joseph, this will be a very tough test for the Wellston Golden Rockets on Saturday night, but there's always a chance for the underdog to come out on top. Now, one big question will be the health of Rylan Mollahan. After injuring his right ankle on their senior night against Meigs, he didn't look quite as explosive in their last game of the season in a loss to Vinton County. The Golden Rockets will need their Gridiron Glory Player of the Year candidate to continue his tremendous season on the ground if they want a shot in this one.
Now to their opponent, the Ironton Tigers. They finished the season at 9-1 in dominant style and will play Wellston for the first time in 38 years.
Yeah, this team outscored their opponents 388-56, and a big reason for this is their Ohio State commit in Reed Carico. Like most players in our coverage, he is a two-way player, leading the defense as a linebacker and slicing up opponents as a running back. The stats on offense are ridiculous, as he's a threat as a runner and a receiver. But the junior's calling card is his lead on defense, as the Tigers D only allowed 193 yards per game during the regular season. Now, we shift focus from Wellston in the playoffs to Nelsonville York, where you might notice some band members wearing shoulder pads during the Buckeyes' halftime performance.
After the school bell rings, many parents want their children involved in as many after-school clubs or sports as possible. Because of this, there can be a clash between the different schedules of these sports, including 2 of the most popular to play during the fall, band or football. Whether it comes to hitting the drums or hitting your opponent, both teach you valuable lessons on things like discipline and getting along with others from a different background. However, when students want to do both of these extracurriculars, there are several factors that they have to consider. Some schools don't allow you to participate in the band and play football since it occurs during Friday night lights. This is a balance that athletic director and football coach Rusty Richards had to figure out.
Every year I've been here, I think we've had at least one football player, do both band and football. So some years we've had to tweak our schedule a little bit. If it's an offensive guy, we know they go a little longer on Wednesdays. So maybe we do offense on Tuesday.
The schedules for practices during the week is something that the athletic director and the band directors have to figure out before the season even starts. But the staff at Nelsonville York have done their best to make this possible.
So we kind of balance that out. Monday, Wednesday, band, Tuesday, Thursday, football. And then on Friday nights, they're on the field and we're cheering for them.
The schedules for these students during any week can be a lot to handle, but doing it all the time allows them to get used to it.
It can be hard sometimes, though, because, this week we'll be busy 6 out of the 7 days, and between competitions and games, it's a lot to do.
It's like moss on a tree, it grows on you.
Shane Meek, Logan Osborne, and Dalton Inman see one simple similarity between both the sports, to work together as one unit.
I think the biggest thing is teamwork between football and band. We're always working as a team.
For sure.
I say teamwork, yeah.
Though they are going through busy schedules, Coach realizes how important these years are to any student.
we want to do everything they can do while they're here, because once those 4 years are gone, and it doesn't come back. So.
With these students, learning their plays has become just as important as learning their music. For WOUB, Jacob Murray, Nelsonville, York.
We only had 3 games tonight, but that doesn't mean we don't have a top play. It's time for the best of the best. It is time for the top 3 plays from the first night of the first round. At number 3, Jared Eisenhower from Jackson. He's going to roll left, fire it deep for Traylon Davis, wide open in the end zone for his first touchdown pass to Davis of the night. Jackson steamrolled Centennial tonight. For number 2, we have J.T. Keith from Jonathan Alder, who throws it down to the right sideline to Jackson Izzard, and he snatches it off the Sheridan defender's helmet. They aren't in our coverage, but that grab deserved to be seen by our viewers because, wow. And at number 1, it's Cam Kittle for Trimble. With the quarterback keep, he avoids the arm tackle and bounces off the big hit with a spin move and takes it in for the score. And those are our top plays of the night. Last week, we narrowed down our list for Player of the Year candidates to 7. After tonight, it's easy to see why these guys have made the cut. They have led their teams to success and have dominated everyone in their path. Here are the final Gridiron Glory Season 21 Player of the Year candidates.
Joey Moore from Athens. The Bulldog quarterback is an electrifying athlete with a cannon on his right shoulder. As a junior, he's the youngin' of the bunch, but he doesn't mind. The kid went off this year for the TVC Ohio champs with 2,401 passing yards, 24 passing touchdowns with a 62% completion percentage. He also ran for 760 yards and added 11 tutties on the ground. Overall, he averaged 316 total yards per game this season. Reese Perkins from John Glenn. The Little Muskies lost some talent last season and needed Perkins to take that next step this year. He did that and a little more. He made highlight play after highlight play, one-handed snags, easily mossing DBs, and he simply dominated the entire MVL. This season, the 6'2" receiver had 48 receptions for 647 yards and 11 touchdowns. He also ended with 2 fumble recoveries and 2 interceptions playing DB. Rylan Mullahan from Wellston. The Golden Rockets relied a lot on number 11, and he didn't shy away from it, ever. Mullahan helped lead Wellston from a 3-7 year last season to 7 wins in the school's first playoff berth since 2006. The running back finished the regular season with 1,161 rushing yards with 11 rushing touchdowns. He also had 1 receiving and 1 passing touchdown, giving him a total of 1,257 yards and 13 touchdowns. As a DB, he had 5 picks, making him a shutdown corner in the Ohio. Jane Spires from Jackson. The star linebacker made a huge impact on the offensive side of the ball this season. The Ironmen ran through the FAC and Spires is the major contributor. He is strong, he is fast, he hits hard, and he hits often. Ask anyone from the FAC and I bet they're still hurting from their matchup against him. He ended with 19 rushing touchdowns, with 1,281 rushing yards and 1 receiving touchdown. Connor Wright from Trimble. Trimble is undefeated and are poised for another deep playoff run, and number 10 with a mohawk and arm sleeve leads the way. Wright has been dominant against his opponents. He only plays half a game because they get up by so much so easily. Wright is powerful, but he can also break ankles with ease, and he does it every single Friday. He ended the year with 1,503 rushing yards and 24 rushing touchdowns.
And those are your Gridiron Glory Player of the Year candidates. If you deserve that your player should win, go to woub.org/gridiron and all of our social media accounts to vote for them. The voting will start exactly at midnight, so be on the lookout for that. And there it is. Night 1 is done. Again, follow all of our social media accounts to follow along with the games tomorrow. We previewed them all tonight, but tomorrow, the real excitement starts. Playoff action. Sunday is going to be the big factor. We'll talk about it a little bit more about who won, who lost, who's playing who, what team does what team needs to improve on what improvements, but they need to be made for all of our teams. But hey, all the teams that we've covered, they've had a season they won't forget. You bring glory, and we report it. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next week. Same time, same place. We are super pumped for this next week of playoff games. It's getting down to the wire. Who can get the state championship ring on their finger? We'll be watching. And remember, there is nothing better than Friday nights and Gridiron Glory. See you next week. I'll do a topical.